So I chose this picture partially because it's one of the few social VR games out there called Werewolves Within, but also because in a lot of ways right now with social VR, AR, we're still in the dark ages. And so I'm trying to focus on where it's heading as part of this talk. So, what is social VR? We got some choices here. So we're going to select the correct answer. This is a group participation here. Is it A, multiplayer VR games? B, educational VR experiences like Chris showed us? C, collaboration in VR environments? D, sharing 360 videos? Or E, all of the above and more? E. I won't say E. Good choice. Sorry, that was a hard one, wasn't it? So I went through this just to say I'm going to be talking mostly about, actually I'm going to be talking entirely about A, B, C, and D, but there's more that I could have gotten into, but obviously I only have so much time. So for the purpose of trying to give a definition for what social VR is without saying it's A through D and E, my definition is that it's any VR experience that enables you to become more connected with people. And this is typically done through telepresence and shared immersive experiences. So to start things off, I've got a video here which shows a multiplayer VR game on Star Trek.
Captain's log, stardate 2016.165. Starship USS Aegis is preparing for her maiden voyage. We've gathered some of the most decorated officers in the Federation to test her limits and to prove her place among Starfleet's finest ships. We're en route to a secret testing facility and are proceeding to our destination at maximum warp. This is amazing!
Wow! Absolutely astonishing.
When I walked in, I really wasn't sure what I was actually walking into.
This is very cool.
If I could have imagined what I would have wanted the Star Trek VR game to be, this is it! This is what we've been waiting for.
Holy crap, this is amazing.
I mean, it really is breathtaking. That was an extraordinary experience to be fully encompassed in a world.
Whoa, not into that. You're interacting with each other and you're talking to each other and you're taking orders from the captain and I mean, it's really cool.
So there's captain, helm,
Yeah.
piloting the ship, tactical, and the engineer routing power and charging warp coils.
I'm feeling pressure already. I'm feeling nervous now.
All right, shields up.
Prepare warp, take us out.
Yes, Captain.
Co-op game playing is not new. I mean, you know, we can play games with our friends, but there's something different about being in a shared virtual environment.
Hearing who you're playing with, you can look over and see the person and see them doing their job and talk to them.
The team does not succeed unless everybody does their job well.
Ship decloaking, activating shields.
Okay, shields up.
Shields up. I really did not want to lower the shields while we were under attack. I was very impressed by LeVar playing that game today. He really had the language of Star Trek down.
And they are transporting, Captain.
It's like, yes, it just makes you push the buttons.
I will say I nailed being the engineer.
That doesn't sound good.
It's a Klingon. Red alert.
Preparing to warp.
We're under attack.
We have been waiting in anticipation for so long for the technology of virtual reality to catch up with where we imagine we should be and where we all want to go.
Line us up for warp, please.
We have full power.
Ensign, as soon as you can get us the hell out of here, I'd be most grateful.
This was really incredible.
Hull is down to 20%. Come on, y'all.
Punch it.
As soon as you can. Here we go.
Woohoo!
It's your own Star Trek experience in a virtual world where you can hang out with whoever you want. And that's a pretty good deal.
thinking about creating a social VR application, that was what I imagined it would have to be like. It'd have to be something like that. And so when I started thinking about, you know, the experience of maybe like a single player game, I thought there's no way a single player game could be social. You look at this guy here, he's, you know, on an airplane, and the question is this social? Could be. Yeah.
Look at the guy on the newspaper.
Yeah.
He's doing just as much,
Right.
just as much social interaction as the next.
So I like Mike's answer, and the answer is maybe. Part of it is, from an outside observer, we don't necessarily know what is going on inside that headset. Today, on an airplane, you actually can have Wi-Fi. You might actually be playing a social VR game like what we just saw. The other aspect is, you know, what Chris was showing with like the 360 videos and whatnot. The idea of, back to my definition of anything that connects us with other people. If we're watching, say, a 360 video, he might be watching a 360 video, say, of Tony Hawk and learning how to skateboard and experiencing just in detail all the tricks that he's doing. And you know, when he gets home from this flight, he might be inspired enough to just pick up his own skateboard and try some of these tricks out, and he might become professional, and a few years later he might actually meet Tony Hawk, and he can explain to him, you know, I got to see you in those 360 videos that you created. I learned from you. You inspired me. Thank you so much for doing that. It was 3 years later before he actually communicated back to Tony Hawk, but really that connection was formed. So, you know, it's hard to say, like, if he never comes back to Tony Hawk, was it really social because it was just a one-way, he received information from Tony Hawk's experience, but he didn't actually communicate back to Tony Hawk. So one could argue that's not social in that way, but I like exactly his answers. It could be. You know, it's hard to really say. Here's another example. Is this social? So I'll start this question with, this is a single player game, and you know, there's no way for anyone else to enter this world. So in this context, what's the answer? Maybe? Oops, I missed it. Okay.
Well, I think in this case, other people were able to watch on a monitor.
Exactly right. So here's why Karen's right that the answer is maybe, is because it depends, right? If other people are watching, this is the thing that actually surprised me the most. I was imagining that I would be somewhat socially isolated whenever I did like a single player virtual reality experience, but the exact opposite is true, because what ends up happening is you have, you know, on the big screen, people can see through your eyes, and without any prompting or just even asking people to watch you play, they just naturally like to watch, and then they'll offer suggestions, give you ideas on how to solve that puzzle, tell you where to go, you know, even to the point where it's just like, you know, stop it, I'm trying to experience this. And it becomes incredibly social. So, yeah, in this case, I would say the answer is yes, because the family's watching, but on the prior photo, you couldn't tell that. So how about this? You know, when we talk about social, sometimes we talk about also the antisocial side of it. And antisocial experiences can be somewhat weird and awkward. So you look at this picture of, actually Tim shared with me an example where when he first started playing Pokemon Go, he ended up going to the Mall of America because there was a hot spot there, and he described it as there was like 100 or so people there, and they were all just clustered in the same area, kind of like these guys, and they're all looking down at their phones, and nobody's talking to each other, but they're all around each other.
It wasn't the mall.
And then someone says, "Oh, there's a Snorlax over here," and everyone just quietly shuffles over to that area without really talking to each other. And so, the way he did, I love the way he described it, is it's the biggest antisocial social function that I've ever attended. And so the question is this social? What do you guys think on Pokemon Go?
It was a park, by the way, not the mall. The mall's always crowded, so.
Oh, it was in a park.
It was at a park, yeah.
Well,
I'd say maybe like the rest because it's all how you use it.
Yeah. I mean, if
it's
you,
all about what the paradigm is, really.
Yeah.
What do you call social? You have to. It can be redefined.
Yeah. So I try to come up with a simple definition. So if we just ask the question, rather than ask, is this social, are connections being formed in this situation? And the answer is maybe. I mean, I see like on the, yeah, there's the answer, maybe. So I see like in the forefront, there's like one guy looking over someone's shoulder. Actually, if you can see down here, he's looking over his shoulder. This guy, I don't know, maybe he's like, you're annoying me, I'm trying to focus on this, just leave me alone, or maybe he is engaged with this guy, in which case it truly would be a social interaction. And then I see something going on over here too. So I think in some circumstances, definitely it can be social. Maybe the better question to ask though is this AR? I think Mike mentioned that he thinks this very much is augmented reality. If it is, it's very much in its infancy for augmented reality.
I think it's safe to assume a lot of us have played like card games and whatnot. Well, I used to be a huge fan of Yu-Gi-Oh! And I saw possible with the HoloLens recently on YouTube, augmented reality Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards. So when you throw out the card, it actually projects the image of the monster that you're displaying. So I feel like this is like the early stages of social AR.
Yeah.
They're already working on making it more social.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'd play that.
Yeah.
And imagine all the people that you meet and encounter while you're playing.
Yeah.
Kind of breaks down those barriers.
I think part of the reason I say maybe to so much of this is it's not really a yes or no answer a lot of times. There's a quality component here, and there's sort of it's a little social, but not as social as I'd like it to be. So.
I might change once I add player versus player battles and trading.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other opinions on this question about is this AR? Are we all thinking maybe?
It seems to me maybe it's more appropriate to ask if something facilitates social interactions, because the games themselves or the medium, whatever it is really not social. It's the actual point where we connect with another person as a social experience.
Absolutely.
So something like Pokemon Go, you don't actually have a social interaction with other people through that.
Yeah.
But it facilitates that happening.
Absolutely.
And also in something like alt space.
Yep.
The alt space.
Yep.
You could go in there and you could not have any social interaction, even though it's specifically designed to facilitate
That's
that.
right.
So it's really about how we use the technology and does it facilitate that opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you pointed out alt space, because that was my experience. Was you go there, and one of the neat things about alt space that I found was when I went there as an adult, I might hear some people having kind of a conversation that wouldn't be appropriate for children. But then when I had my son try it, kind of in the same environment, people hear his voice and realize this is a child. They can see his head is a little bit lower, and they are. It's almost like there's a little bit of built-in accountability. Mm-hmm. As soon as you start feeling like you're really there, mm-hmm. And so their natural instinct was, oh, we better stop swearing because there's a little guy here. Right?
Which also is social. That's social.
Absolutely.
Just the essence of his height.
Yep.
Or one of the things that really struck me in alt space was the ability to see if somebody's actually laughing and how hard they're laughing just by the head movement as they're laughing.
Interesting.
Or going back to Pokemon Go, something like placing a lure at a Pokestop.
Yeah.
Pokemon Go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the social aspects of that, you're giving other people the ability to catch more Pokemon. So there's different levels of that interaction.
Yeah, and then there's
Actually, show of
also
hands, who's played Pokemon Go? I have. Yeah. So, and really, I enjoyed it. In fact, there was the thing that I love the best about Pokemon Go is that it, I've seen with my boys too. It encourages them to get outside. It encourages them to explore their neighborhood, and I think to a large degree, it is social. Even if it's not social in the moment, it's a point of commonality with their friends at school. They can talk about, oh, how many have you got, that kind of thing. So, very much, I would tend to favor on this. I answered maybe, but I think because I answered it that way
Very
just
much
because
in
I
the
think
same way that television is not necessarily a social event, but when you get to the water cooler at work the next day, it is.
Yeah.
Sure.
yeah.
Our family, like, we'll go on walks together, even though they're playing, we could have been just sitting around on our own PC, but we got out together as a family to go catch Pokemon.
Going to the theater or going to the opera, nobody would call you antisocial for going to an opera and sitting there and not speaking for a while.
Yeah, I think the thing with Pokemon Go is it's great for what it is, but I can imagine it being so much better.
Yeah, it does.
And part of that is, if we actually could see the same 3D objects as augmented reality, as naturally as we see real objects, right? So if you have virtual objects that you're in a virtual Pokemon Go and we can all walk around it and whatnot, then when it becomes this natural object, then there becomes that we're looking at each other now and we're not just staring down at this tiny little window into this virtual world. So there's, so this is kind of where I see it going, right? It's to the point where you have it as simple as a pair of glasses. And you can see that mixed reality. You can interact with real world objects, you can interact with virtual objects, and everyone's got their own set of glasses, and we all are able to see the same environment. So I thought this link is for, you mentioned not to be confused with Leap Motion, but Magic Leap. This is from his Brain Divine's keynote address. I'm going to forward it about a half hour into it because obviously you can't watch all of it. But I felt like he really hit the nail on the head with this particular thing we're talking about.
This sucks. This is the world we have today. People no longer live in the world. They go to concerts, and there is some guy here on stage singing his heart out, and there's a drummer, and there's other stuff. And everyone is watching this concert. Instead of engaging with everyone looking in the corner of the stage, watching people around you having fun, they're looking at their phones above them to make sure they're capturing it properly. They're looking at this little 4-inch screen when they're at a concert. There is one person in the bottom left that has got the heart up. I like that person. And so I think about engagement in the world we have today and how messed up this is that people are no longer living in the moment. They're no longer living in the present. They're living for something that doesn't actually exist. They loved going to the concert, but they never actually saw it. And so we need to change that. We need to change that for mixed reality. Mixed reality needs to go forward and change that. There was another shocking image lately at a museum of people using cell phones. And here's, I think, that Rembrandt. And so I look at that because it's horrifying, right? It's like there is art history in front of you and they are all staring at the darn phones. Oh my gosh, what has society done? I should never have gone to Apple. I'm really sorry. Yeah, it's like it was just me. But there's a little bit more to this story. Here's that same group actually interacting, learning, looking at things. So what were they doing here when they were looking at their phones? What were they actually doing? Well, it turns out they were all downloading and using an application that the museum makes to do a quiz their teacher had set out. And so a lot of what I hear around smartphones and education is ruining the world in front of us. And smartphones, I think they are too, and I think they're terrible. But smartphones are occasionally doing something incredible as well. They are adding to the world around you. They are adding information to you directly. They are doing some interesting things. But surely it would be more interesting, instead of staring down at their iPhone, to look at the history of this thing and to learn more about it, to continue staring at that piece of history in front of them. Surely that is better. And so I think about what mixed reality is going to do there, and how mixed reality is going to bring the classroom into the world.
Okay, so stop it there. You know, the thing about that is, you know, I really like how he started with that picture of everyone staring down at their phone. And I think that's some of what we're experiencing too, with even trying to get people to try virtual reality for the first time. There's sort of this judgment that's going on that, I can't believe you're stuck, you're sucked into this phone of yours, and there's so much around the world around you that's beautiful, and you're just ignoring it all. But there's a lot of judgment that goes on with that, and that also becomes almost like a fear from people to even not want to try something because they're afraid they're just going to become sucked in, and then their friends are going to make fun of them for getting sucked into some new technology. If you aren't familiar with who Graham Devine is, Mike mentioned the huge funding that Magic Leap has received and the remarkable technology that they're developing. I'm just going to forward this. I'm going to forward this into a couple minutes just so you can see what they're doing.
Future of computing. This is and to the rest of us. At the heart of the technology is this photonics chip.
Whatever you do, don't call it a lens. Magic Leap won't, and it says it won't disclose what the final goggles will look like, or even if they're goggles.
It's a three-dimensional wafer-like component that has very small structures in it, and they manage the flow of photons that ultimately create a digital light field signal.
Sounds complicated, doesn't it? Even the people building this technology have a hard time explaining what it is and what it's like to experience it.
This might sound a little strange, but I think it's like dreaming with your eyes open.
You're just so convinced that what you're seeing in front of you that you know is sort of unreal, that it feels so real.
Everest conquered. The New Zealander Edmund Hillary got his first mail and congratulatory telegrams.
I think of the metal and chrome that we make is awesome, right? I mean, it reflects photons into your retina and does all these crazy, crazy awesome things. But the most important thing is what happens when you put it on.
Right.
Magic Leap's potential for gaming and entertainment is obvious. But Roni is already thinking about how it might replace all of our other screens too.
So I can conjure a tablet, I can conjure many televisions, I can conjure a home theater.
But it could be a while before Magic Leap conjures up its first product, a wearable. The company won't commit to a release date. And there's competition, like Meta and Microsoft's HoloLens, which are already shipping developer kits. Roni doesn't mind. He's willing to wait until Magic Leap is perfect. Then, he says, computing in space will feel completely natural.
That to me is the real Magic Leap. Like you've crossed through the looking glass, you're on the other side, and there's talking white rabbits and Alice is there, and it's pretty cool.
Or maybe it's jellyfish pulsing across the ceiling. For now, you'll have to take a magic leap of faith.
So I'm extremely interested in augmented reality from a developer perspective, but for $3,000, it's a little out of my price range right now, so I'm probably going to be waiting on buying a Microsoft HoloLens. Similarly, Meta 2 actually is a lot cheaper. It has a better field of view, but a friend of mine from NVIDIA mentioned that the reason they haven't released, they were supposed to already release in the third quarter this year, but he said they're having tracking issues, so they're still trying to work some bugs out. And then there's a new one that's supposed to be coming out, which is even cheaper, supposed to be in the second half of next year, called Intel Alloy. and they're more trying to compete with, I think, Google Cardboard. It's a complete solution, so you don't have to add a phone. It's already built in.
Well, but that one was a VR or AR?
They're calling it AR. The headset looks like VR, and from what I understand, what they're doing is they're using the front cameras.
Okay.
You can see, I don't want to go into too much detail because I'm pretty much out of time, but you can see your own hands with the things. And so they're calling it augmented reality, but I think they're mostly just using their front cameras. And it's 3D, like RealSense cameras that you're using. So it's a very different approach from what the others are doing. So then, we're down to the third point on social VR, collaboration in VR environments. So, as expensive as HoloLens is, even though I probably won't do it, they made a really nice video that I think shows about a minute worth of really good collaboration that I just want to show. So starts at about 23 seconds. So I would consider this also social VR.
Where your digital world is blended with your real world. Now we can. This is the world with holograms. What will they enable us to do? New ways to visualize our work.
I have an idea for the fuel tank.
New ways to share ideas with each other.
Going your end?
I just put the images in OneDrive.
Perfect.
More immersive ways to play. New ways to teach and learn.
So put the new trap in the place of the old one.
Now what?
And tighten here and here.
New ways to collaborate and explore the places we've never been.
Look at this formation. Let's take a closer look.
Okay, so I thought that was a good video because it's just sort of like boom, boom, boom. You get all these quick examples of collaboration in 3D and what, the future. Obviously, none of those people are playing video. Well, we did see some video game in there, but from the social aspects of what they were showing off, none of that was video games, which I thought was really neat. So, think about all the uses in the work environment, especially if you're doing designing or even just trying to solve problems. Then we go to 360 videos. So this is the device that we just did a drawing for. What's really neat is today you can buy an inexpensive, Google Cardboard or whatever, and for a very low investment, given that most people already have a smartphone, you can insert your phone and instantly be transported in the place you want to go, often experiencing things beyond your own capabilities. Sometimes we aren't sure where we want to go, so we might explore skydiving or surfing or sailing or doing some wreck diving. And then the next moment we find ourselves with a group of children far from home fleeing ISIS. And it's accidental moments like this that can be the most rewarding and life-changing aspects of social VR. And they're made only through these immersive experiences. So there's a big difference between hearing the facts about a situation and actually being there experiencing it. For example, if I were to tell you extreme poverty and poor nutrition causes nearly half of deaths in children under 5, which is 3.1 million children each year, even though this fact might surprise you, it would be an entirely different experience if I shared this statistic while we were all standing at the dump site of Metro Manila in the Philippines, surrounded by over 25,000 homeless children scrounging for scraps to survive. So hearing personal stories and watching 360 videos about these harsh living conditions connects us in significant ways that dissolves borders and inspires us to give to international charities like Voice of the Martyrs and Food for the Hungry. So the future of VR will connect us with each other in ways even more immersive and interactive than these 360 recorded videos. We'll be able to develop friendships with people from many different countries, learning from each other by communicating through universal translators in real time. We'll be able to physically interact and assist rebuilding communities through drones and telepresence robots. Through VR, AR technology, many more people around the globe will have access to higher education, which in the long run can reduce poverty and save lives.